Good morning, everybody, and welcome to What Kate Made. I'm Kate, and today we're going to look at making flowers and leaves out of felt and paper, spring flowers specifically. So in the end, we're going to build up to make a spring wreath. So first thing I'm going to tell you about is the wreaths themselves. Now, in the past, I've used polystyrene wreaths, and if you've seen them, if you joined me for the autumn wreath, you'll realise that I sort of tried to get away from using too much plastic. And what I came up with, my solution was papier-mâché. Now, this is newspaper. It's a circle of stiff card, toilet roll tubes, or kitchen roll, or whatever tubes, and then papier-mâché. So it's newspaper and glue. And this has got about 5 or 6 layers of newspaper, so I tore it in strips and wrapped it around. On my Facebook page is a little video on how to do it, and I'll repost it on the timeline so you can go and have a look. But this is a really good alternative. It's very light, it's very strong. It's a brilliant alternative to using the polystyrene ones, and it's basically made out of rubbish. So that is the wreath. You can also make your wreath on any other sort of hoop you like, so metal hoops, card hoops. But I prefer the more solid wreath shape, proper wreath shape. Now, I've prepared my wreath, but I haven't actually made the wreath. So this is my base I'm going to use. And as you can see, I've covered it in a ribbon. So this is a wide ribbon that I had. I've got it in blue and yellow because I thought that's a nice spring colours. I do like to do my wreaths, so they're kind of like a landscape. But if you just wanted to just do it all flowers, then I've got loads of flowers to show you, and mostly spring flowers, but can be adapted into other colours. So mine tend to be mostly greens, daffodils, yellows, greens, some blues, but spring colours. So that's just a quick word about the wreath. So I'm going to show you what I've made for my wreath. Oh, good morning, Sue. I can actually see your comments today. So everybody comment, please. Right, back to this. So, because it's spring, what do you think of when you think of spring? I always think of daffodils. And these daffodils are what I've made. And I'm really pleased with them. I think they're very lifelike considering they're made of felt. You can also make these from paper as well. It doesn't have to be felt. So some of the ones I'm going to show you are made with crepe paper, and some are made with just coloured paper. When I show you how to make the daffodils, you'll see you'll be able to. You can make them from paper as well. Another example of that is buttercups, which are another spring flower. Can you see? As I come closer, it tends to go out of focus. Now that one's made of felt. This one is made of crepe paper. And this one, which I've just done this morning, is made with ordinary, just children's coloured paper. I made this with one of the templates that you could download. So I've mostly used the smaller templates today out of the flower and leaf templates. So this is the one I used to make this buttercup, but I'll show you that later. So those are the buttercups. I've done a few leaves. You saw that I'd done leaves on my daffodil. I've also, it's difficult in spring because there aren't many leaves about. I've also done some very small leaves in a sort of pale leafy green. If you've done the autumn wreath, you'll know how to make these. They're quite simple, but I'll show you that later. I've also made a cherry blossom branch because I'm making mine look a little bit like a landscape. I'm going to use the cherry blossom. That's made with crepe paper with a couple of little tiny felt leaves on it and wrapped in brown stem wrap to make it look like a branch. Although I try and make it look like a landscape mine, it's very out of proportion. You don't get flowers as big as birds. But anyway, I also made some with beads. So I've made these little, that one's supposed to look like a forget-me-not, but it seems to have gone a little bit out of shape. Oops, I always go the wrong way. These I thought looked like grape hyacinths. Now they're just made with little seed beads and wire. If we have time, I'll show you how to make those. but if we haven't time, I will post a video later. Now this is my attempt at a bluebell, which I think is quite a good bluebell, but I'm not sure everybody would be able to make this. I'm just going to quickly tell you how I made it, because I just kind of like, it just happened. So what I had in my stash was these beads that are like a flower shape. They've got a hole through the middle. And I thought, oh, they're nice. They look like bluebells, but they're white. So what I did was I got a Sharpie, a blue Sharpie, and I coloured them. So just like that. This is actually darker blue than the one I use. And I coloured them in because these are sort of translucent white. And then I just put wires in them. So you can see coloured in, half not. Then I put wires in them and glued the wires in, and then just basically put several together to make a bluebell. So if you see any of these, I can't even remember where I got them. I think somebody might have given me them, but they were just there in my stash. So I'm going to use that in mine, but you may, unless you can find these on eBay or somewhere, you may not be able to replicate that. But again, it's just a couple of very fine leaves on it. So that's the bluebell. As I say, if you can find those beads, you can make one. Okay, so I think we're about ready to get started. What I'm going to use today, so you'll need scissors, you'll need florist wire, you'll need stem wrap, which is florist stem wrap, which is kind of sticky, like a sticky tape, needle and thread, and your felt or your paper. So you can use crepe paper or felt for the daffodils, because you have to sew it, so it's not really suitable for the other sort of ordinary paper. I'm going to start with the daffodils because they're nice. So I'm just going to pop you down and make sure that you can see my work surface, because I did last time manage to lose people. People couldn't see what I was doing. Okay, so we're starting with our felt for the daffodil. So we're using what I would consider to be daffodil colours. So this one, yeah, with the orange centre, or this one with the yellow centre. So what you could do is just use yellow and yellow, or you could use, if you've got like a creamy white, that would be really nice to make like a narcissi. So what you need to do is cut 2 strips. So it depends on how big you want your daffodil to be. That's quite a big daffodil. Obviously the other one is smaller. So you cut your yellow to the width that you want it to be. How long you want your petals. So I'm going to try the smaller one. So I'm going to make, what you need to do when you're cutting this strip is you leave about 2-3 millimeters, because you need to sew that bit. And then you think about the length of your petals. So I want my petals to be about there, that long, because I want them quite small. And you just cut a long strip off your felt, trying to keep it as even as you can. I've gone a bit wonky there. Just put that to one side. So your daffodil has 6 petals. So you want to fold this into 6 pieces, as wide as you want your petals to be. So I'm thinking about 2 centimeters. And then you sort of concertina fold it till you've got 6 pieces all the same size. This just makes it easier to cut. I reckon 5 folds makes 6. So you can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to cut that extra bit off. Okay. So the bottom edge here, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to cut my shape. If you're happy cutting freehand, do that. But if you want to, you can always use one of your flower templates. So for instance, that flower template, although it's a little bit small for that, it's got the right shape for a daffodil. So I'm just going to cut mine freehand because I've been doing them all weekend, so I'm quite good at it now. Your daffodil shape has got a point, but not a sharp point. So you want to make it You want to leave your like 2 mil, bit at the bottom to sew through, and then you cut towards the center till you get a sharp point, and then cut from the other side. So again, you're leaving a little bit at the bottom and you're cutting towards the center. And then I would just nip that off, because daffodils are not totally pointy. Let's get rid of these extra bits. And what you should have, if you haven't cut all the way through, is that. So the next thing you want to do is just where you haven't maybe got a longer, wider bit, you just want to snip that. So because these are going to splay out when you gather them. So now you take your needle and thread, and here's one I've threaded earlier. You know how notoriously bad I am at threading needles, so I always do mine in advance. Right, so you will start at one end and you just run a gather stitch as close to the edge as you can without sort of like breaking, because my felt is very thin and cheap, and I specifically get it thin and cheap because it's stiffer and it makes better flowers. I did buy some other felt this weekend and it was too soft, too floppy. It didn't make very good petals. So run your gathering stitch all the way along the bottom. We've got quite a few people here this morning. I've got Sue Owen. Good morning, Sue. Sandrine, Amanda, and Jerry. Jerry lives in my village, so she's not far away. She's a spinner and weaver. Right. So what you've got now is your flower shape, and what you do is just simply pull your gathers and gather your leaves together. Now it's when you get to the last two that they tend to not want to gather. So what I've done is tie a knot so that I'm creating like a slip knot. I'm moving away from you again, aren't I? And I'm just going to pull that until all the petals gather. And then I'm just going to secure it with one little stitch. Doesn't look very daffodil-like yet, but you do need to leave a bit of a gap in the middle so that you can get your center on. Oops. So I am just going to put a few little stitches through that to hold it secure. It may not look very daffodil-like yet, but it will, I promise. Good morning, Donna and Roger. Oh, it's Sarah. She's using Roger's account. Sorry about that. Right. So then just nip that off. And I'll keep that because I'll need that later. So there's your daffodil shape, your outer shape. What you might want to do at this point is some of your petals might not be perfectly shaped. Good morning, Julie. So you might just want to trim them a little bit. So the centre's made in exactly the same way. But as you can see, it's got a zigzag edge. I used pinking shears to cut mine. It's easier than trying to zigzag it with by hand. So here's one I made earlier. In good old, actually I won't. I'm going to put yellow center in it. So I make mine all yellow. So this is just made in the same way again. You use your needle and thread. So I'm just going to tie a knot in the end of that. I've no nails at the moment, so it makes it very difficult to grab and pick things up. They look pretty, but they're pretty useless at the moment. So I've cut a whole strip along because it depends on how gathered you want it as to how long it will be. So it's a little bit more like a sort of like suck it and see nearly. So again, I'm going to do a little running stitch along the bottom. It's actually, oh, pulled it right through. See, that's the danger. It's nice doing this today with the sunshine yellow because it's a miserable day here. I don't know what weather you've got, but it's really not nice here. It's raining. So this is a little bit of cheery sunshine yellow. That might be enough. So I've gone about halfway along my and I think that's probably going to be enough. So I'm just going to snip the other bit off. So that'll be, I can use that for another daffodil. And again, where I've made the knot, I'm going to loop this through to create my gathers. And what you're aiming for is a little sort of cup shape like that, like you see in the center of a daffodil. So I'm going to pull it a little tighter and try and catch it just right. And again, stitch through both ends so that it doesn't unravel. And you can push it a little bit if you want to spread it out, but there you go. You can think sometimes it's quite a good idea to just sew through the bottom of your gathers for this bit, because you do want it to sit quite tight together at the bottom and then spread out nearer the top. So I'm just going to run a few little stitches through so I can hold it together a bit better. So when you pull it, you see it, my thread's got caught there over the, you know, it's awful having no nails to pull stuff. There we go. The thread's got caught and it won't gather properly there. So once you've got your cup shape, then just fasten off your thread with a little knot. Got that. Now at this point, you can either glue or stitch. I'm going to glue just because it's quicker today. So I've got my hot glue and I'm going to glue the back of that and then just press it on like that. I burnt myself. I always burn myself. So there's your basic daffodil flower. There's a bit of a spare thread there, so just nip that off. Now the stem, there's several things you can use. I've got some green florist wire, so that's what I've used for my stem. Or you can use, where have they gone? You could get green pipe cleaners, which are kind of fluffy and not very realistic, but you could use that. My green wires are like, oh, that's one I've cut in half. I like this. So the way I've done it is, remember that little bit of spare we had when we did our folding? Use a piece of that, just a little square, and I've glued it on the back to hold the wire in place. So I'm going to do that now. You don't need a great big, that big a bit. You just need like a little bit. So it's like a patch. So you put your wire on the back. I'm going to glue the patch and try not to burn myself again. And then put that over and we'll press it that way. Dries very quickly, does hot glue, so that's why I use it a lot. So that's your daffodil. All it needs now is some leaves. So a dark green felt. Again, this is the cheap stiff felt. I'm going to cut. I'm actually going to cut it along there. That's basically the length of my and what I'm going to do is cut long thin sections, and because I don't like to waste, I'm going to cut them alternate ways so that I'm basically forming a leaf shape every time. So I'm going to do 3, and the way we're going to fasten these on is simply by gluing them to the stem. When I do leaves on wires, this is how I do it. So you put a dab of glue on, put your wire. So we don't want these to come right to the top, and then just pinch it round so it sticks, and you get sort of a nice bend in it as well. And you just do that with all the leaves. So I'm going to turn it slightly so that it's at an angle. It might be easy to just pick the leaf up and spread it round, because we don't want all the leaves in the same place. That's glue in my hand, right? And then the next one. And put the other one a bit lower so they spread out a bit. And I think you'll agree, that's lovely. So I've got sort of 3 daffodils now, so I'm going to use probably the smaller ones, and that one's even smaller. I mean, the size of your daffodil depends on the size of your petal. So that's the daffodils, and they're really pretty. And you know, just put them in a vase if you don't want to make a wreath. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to look at for you is the cherry blossom branch, because this is very simple. It's just pieces of tissue paper, and I'm going to use this brown wire. I've used stem wrap on here, but I had to use silver wire for fastening together the paper, and it didn't really work. So this is a brown florist wire. Where's my nipper's gone? There we go. And I'm going to cut it into short length of about 3 or 4 inches, one for each flower. And using this will save me having to try and wrap stem wrap round a very narrow. It's harder to wrap around narrow wires. So for this you need, now originally I used this pink paper, but I think it's too pink. So I'm just going to do white with this one, but I am going to use a Sharpie, pink one, to do the edges. So it's going to look like, I don't know if you can see the pink, like that. This is one I was experimenting with earlier, but I'll show you as I go. So what you need for this is a strip of white crepe paper about an inch wide, and what you're gonna do is roll it up from the end. Sorry, I'll show you. I'll do it this way, and then you can see. So you roll it up and scrunch it as you go. So pleat it and roll it as you go, so you're getting a sort of flower shape. And when you think you've got enough, just tear off your crepe paper. Then pinch together the ends, so like that. Take your wire and wrap it round the bottom. And then just straighten it out. And you can flick that to open it up a little bit, and it's as simple as that. That's your little cherry blossom. So if you want to do the pink edge, just get your strip again, get your marker pen, and just do that. I would recommend putting it on a surface that you don't mind marking. This is just one of my working mats. I don't mind marking this. And go along as far as you think you need to go. And this will go through onto the other side because crepe paper is quite thin. And also it'll wet the edge a little bit, so it sort of crinkles a bit more. I'll just pull that bit off. And then you do the same again. You fold and crinkle as you go and roll. Crinkle and fold and roll. And then when you've got enough, again, wrap your wire around. I always put it in the middle and wrap both sides of the wire one way and then the other, and quite near get a good bit of it pinched in. and then you can just so I'm just going to do another white one, and then I'm going to show you how I would start to wire them together. So this is I'll do one more because I cut myself 3 bits of wire, and I have some others I made earlier that haven't got brown stems, but that's, as you get more stems wound together, it is easier to wrap the stem around. So I'm going to show you that now. So I've got altogether 5 little cherry blossoms. 2 are on silver wires, so I'm going to put them near the bottom. So basically all you do from here is wire them together. So I don't know whether you can see, but I am just going to twist and twist them round. Yeah, and then I'm going to do the same with this pink one. So I'm making sort of, trying to make them not even, because they wouldn't be even in the wild. And sort of, they have come a bit even. I tend to do this, you know. Just sort of arrange them nicely. It's because my mum used to be a florist, and I worked with her making things like buttonholes and corsages, and they had to be even. Now I'm going to add the ones on the silver wire, and as you can see, I've got quite a thicker bit, of almost branchy bit now, so I will be able to wrap stem around it. So and now I'm just going to get my piece of stem wrap. This is brown. I've got brown and green and white here. And the way once it warms in your fingers, it starts to stick together. So you kind of like stick the top bit, and then it's just a case of twiddling and turning and pulling as you go, and it will wrap right to the end. And once you've got that on, it does look a bit more like a twig because it sort of is knobbly. And there we go. That's your cherry blossom branch. Great, good, isn't it? Okay, so what's next? I'm going to show you a few leaves because the leaves are dead simple. It's very similar way to I showed you with the, I'm struggling to find my coloured felt now. What I showed you with the cutting the daffodil out. So you can cut more than one leaf at once by folding it. I'm going to do some in this dark green as well. I'm sure you get dark green leaves. So I'm going to cut, I want small ones. I might put them on my cherry blossom. So I'm going to cut that at about 1 inch. This helps you make more than one leaf at once. So you find your leaf template. You can use your leaf template. I'm going to cut mine freehand because I want them small. I have cut some bigger ones using that template earlier in the light green. So I'm going to make mine, I want mine to be about that wide. So you fold your felt, trying to keep one edge even. Making sure that, and then if you've got very sharp scissors, which I have, you can cut your leaf shape out. So you cut a sort of oval to a point. So that's one side. Turn it the other way and do the same from the other side. I'm getting lots of likes and love popping up. That's nice. So then you've got several leaf shapes. Some bits might still be joined and they might just need a bit of a trim. So what are you all thinking of it so far? there is some complaints about the feed, which I've got new broadband. It's fibre broadband, so I'm not sure it's coming from my end, because if it is, then I'm going to ask for my money back. So I'll just do one more, and then I'll show you how you fasten the wires on. Okay. So with these, I'm going to use the green wires, but I'm going to cut them in half because they are quite long. No, I don't know where that went. And then you'd simply put a blob of glue, like we did with the daffodil leaves. Place your wire on the blob and then pinch it, being careful not to burn your fingers. And then when it sets, you get a kind of, pleated leaf shape. You see that? So that's nice. The bigger ones, bigger leaves that are cut, you do them in a very similar fashion. Blob of glue. If you were doing all flowers on your wreath, you probably would want bigger leaves. So on the leaf template, there's several sizes of leaf. There are, and different shapes as well. There are sort of sycamore leaves and oak leaves, but these are quite good if you're doing them with flowers. So on my cherry blossom, I could put these smaller leaves. They would match quite well with that one. Okay. Now, how are we doing for time? We're all right for time. I've got another 10 minutes, so I will show you very quickly one of the beaded ones. I will. No. What I'll show you is the buttercup, because that's made in a very similar way to the daffodil, but I will. You don't want it very wide, so about 1 inch wide. Cut a strip again. Sorry, it's getting a bit messy here. And then you're going to make 1, 2, 3, 5 petals for this. And they want to be a little bit wider because you're going to cut a roundish petal. So 4 folds will make you 5 petals. So cut that off there. Now the petal is round. Again, you want to leave a bit at the bottom because you're going to sew along it. But I'm going to just cut a sort of rounded shape. Again, you could use your flower template and just go around one of the petal shapes. So what you end up with is 5 petals like that. Again, you sew them. So I'm just going to quickly sew this because this bit you've seen me do before, but it's slightly different on the centre of the buttercup. You may want to cut down some of these glue on my scissors because they'll spread out a little bit better. You can make this with paper as well, with the crepe paper, and I made this one using this flower template, just with ordinary paper, just a children's pad of coloured paper. So the flower template, you can cut out the flower slightly differently. But sorry, I'm struggling here. I'll just tie that. So that is very similar in a way to the daffodil so far, except that your petals are a different shape. Pull that and tie it. You do need to have a little bit of a hole in the middle because you are going to put the center in there. Now the center, you can see, is like stamens. So the bit we had left, fold it in half, and you're going to cut a fringe. As neat. This actually works better with paper than felt. I'm showing you with felt just because that's what I've got handy. So cut a fringe down, not all the way down, but in leaving a little bit in between, because that's how you're going to glue it onto your stem. I'm getting quite a few nice comments again. I mean, some people are okay with the video quality. As I say, I've got super fast broadband now, so if I'm not getting the video quality, I'm going to be complaining. So you do about 2 inches of fringe, and then we'll just cut it off. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap it around our stem. Again, I'm going to use the green florist wire. First of all, we're just going to do the end and do the little stamen bit at the end. So with your wire, if you've got a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, you just want to curl the end over so it makes a little loop. And then I'm going to use some of the white stem tape to create my stamen. And again, as I said, this might be a little bit big, so I'm going to fold it in half. What I'm aiming to get is, if I can show you on this one, I don't know if you can see, it's a little white knob in the centre. So I found by folding the stem tape in half, it doesn't make too big a, you know, if I didn't fold it in half, it would go all the way down the stem. And what I'm trying to create is a little bobble on the end. So I'm just going to cut that rather than tear it. And then I'm going to work it with my fingers as it melts and goes waxy into just a little bubble, like a bob. Got a sore finger because I stabbed myself yesterday. Felting needle. So that's what I'm aiming for, a little white. Can you see that? Whoops. A little white knob on the end. Now, what you do now is you wrap it round. Trying to remember how this goes. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fold the fringe. What I'm going to do is put some glue on. I'm not going to use the hot glue because it's very blobby, but this is a tacky glue which has sealed itself up, and it will let me roll this round the. So what you want to do is get your white bit so it's hidden. It will show eventually, and then just roll so that your stamen bits splay out. Might just secure it with a little blob of hot glue because that will hold it while the other glue sets. And now I'm getting hot glue. Okay. So then you just splay them out and you feed it through the center. What you might want to do is just like pop your petals so that they cup outward. Put a tiny bit of glue on the bottom so that when you push your stem up, your buttercup stem, it glues them together. And there we go. That's your buttercup. As I say, you can make it with crepe paper as well. That comes out, that's a little smaller. It's easy to make a smaller one with the paper. Then you would add a little calyx round the bottom, which I would make maybe with some of this felt. Again, you do a little fringe, curl it round and stick it. I haven't actually done that with any of mine yet. You can cut leaves out. You could probably use the oak leaf template. It would look a little bit like a butterfly leaf. So those are your buttercups. I said butterfly, I meant buttercups. So the last thing, if I have a little time, I'm going to just very quickly show you how I made these little, what I call grape hyacinths. And for these, I'm going to use a silver wire, very fine silver wire, and some little blue seed beads. And basically what you do is you need an uneven number. So depending on how big you want it, but it needs to be an uneven number because one's supposed to be sticking up at the top. So that's 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put 7 on this. 4, 5, 6. These are all different sizes, these beads. 7. So then you thread your beads onto the middle of your wire and then just simply pull your wire sides up, trying to keep them as tightly clamped as you can, because that keeps all your beads in one place. Just give it a couple of twists, straighten it out. A bit of green stem wrap. This is where you see how difficult it is to put stem wrap around very narrow wires. So you need to stretch your stem wrap and twist it as you go. My fingers are all sticky with it now. And that's your basic little grape hyacinth. And you would do 3 or 4 of those and put them together. They have leaves as well. They have like long narrow leaves like bluebells and crocuses. So you would do long narrow leaves for that. Okay, so that's how to make flowers. I'm going to just tip you up again. That's how to make spring flowers and leaves out of felt paper beads. I am going to do another one, and I, off the top of my head, can't remember the date, but the second part, I think it's in a couple of weeks. The second part of the wreath, I'm going to show you some needle felting. I am going to make, well, I'm in the process of making a little bird for mine, and I have, I think, somewhere, a bird's nest. I've made a bird's nest as well. I just can't put my hands on it at the moment. So I'm going to show you how to needle felt a bird's nest. And I'm also going to show you how to needle felt some birds' eggs. So, and then we're going to put the whole wreath together. So that's the next session. It will be basically a watch along one because needle felting takes quite a long time. And I'm going to have to just show you how to do it and then show you the finished product. And then put the whole wreath together with my flowers and leaves and my bird's nest. You don't have to use, as I say, the bird's nest, but it's nice to show you a little bit of needle felting techniques. And I think that's everything for today because I'm rapidly running out of time. It's been lovely to have your company. I mean, 27 viewers is quite nice. If you want to leave a comment, I try and look back at all the comments afterwards and try and reply to you all. Anybody that's watching it back, just comment replay and tell me what you think. I will put the video on my own feed page. I'll add the link, or Village Hall might add the link to this feed, to my Facebook page where the video to make the wreath base, the recycled wreath base, I'll put that up on there for you today. I might put a few other little tiny tutorials for leaves and flowers. And yeah, join me again in a couple of weeks for the second part, your spring wreath, which we'll put it together. Hopefully by then I'll have my, here's one I made earlier to show you. It's just been a bit busy around here. So thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully I'll see you again shortly, and have fun with your flowers. That's me signing off. Goodbye.